So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Adriana Balboa, PhD student at the University of Cantabria, and I will share with you the first insight of the work titled, Should I Stay or Should I Go? Online Experiments on Self-Protection Under Threatening Situations. So, if I say terrorism, I think that we are all clear about the threat it entails to society. But to understand the background of this work, I would like you to look at the image on the screen and ask yourself, how would you react or act to a similar threatening or hazardous situation? And which factors influence on your protective decisions or actions? Every day, emergencies occur where human lives are at risk. Between 2011 and 2019, there were around 753 explosions and armed attacks in Europe. In fact, 47% of Europeans are worried about becoming victims of terrorism in the next 12 months. Therefore, we must fight terrorism every day. And what we have done so far? So, there have been many improvements in security, as well as a specific analysis of the scope and impact of terrorist attacks, the way the terrorists behave, and the behavior of people involved. These studies are very comprehensive and give us qualitative information. However, quantitative data on people's reactions to threatening situations is scarce. And what is the main motivation of the behavior of people during the threats? The environment, their own characteristics. This is the aim of this paper. That is to find answers to these questions by defining the relationships between external and internal factors and people's self-protective behaviors during threats. So let's get started with methodology. First, it should be noted that experiments were originally conceived in person format, but couldn't be carried out due to a pandemic. Despite the drawbacks, this change allowed us to know the virtual format and to discover its advantage for conducting evacuation experiments. The design phase of the experiment involved the trial design to analyze the external factors and the post-questionnaire design to analyze internal factors. The study was formed by 6 experiments, in which 3 factors were combined, resulting in 18 trials. The threat factor involves the fire alarm, the explosion, and shootings. The physical factor involves open area and enclosure environment, and this is the physical context where the participant is when the threat is triggered. And then the social factor involves the individual, group stay, and group go. And this is the social influence variable, implemented as the virtual people the participant sees when the threat is produced. In the individual case, the participant is alone. In group stay, virtual people remain in the area, and in group go, virtual people leave the scene. This table shows the combinations of factors. Each row corresponds with each trial. First column is the threat factor, second, the physical factor, and third column, the social factor. This experiment matrix gives us the possibility to undertake the analysis between the factors and the self-protective behaviors in many ways, due to the keys of the design. These keys are: participants were randomly assigned to one of the experiments, each participant performs only one experiment, and all participants face the threat factor in the same order. First fire alarm, then explosion, and finally shootings. And also participants experience the 3 social influences. And finally, each threat is shown in all physical and social combinations. Finally, the post-questionnaire was designed to elicit sociodemographic characteristics and impressions of participants. The key challenge of developing online experiments is to reproduce the environment as more realistic as possible. For that, we used Pathfinder to design a 3D building. We simulated and recorded a video of each trial with the corresponding inputs of physical and social factors using the 3D visualization of the model. The fire and the smoke visual cues were simulated using the FDS software and then imported in Pathfinder. The videos were joined with auditory and visual stimuli with a video software. Once the trials and the post-questionnaire were completed, we combined them in the PsyToolkit platform. This is an online platform to conduct psychological experiments and fits perfectly with our requirements. During the experimental procedure, participants watch the videos, choose decisions, and fill out the post-questionnaire. Participants were informed about the purpose of the experiments and gave consent for data collection. But I think the best way to explain what the participants experience is to show the trials of experiment 1 as an example. The length of videos has been reduced to the moment when the threat is triggered due to the time limit of this presentation. Before starting, participants were indicated that they were in a healthcare center to get some magical results. Remember that experiment 1 is in open area. So, first video is the fire alarm trial. Do you hear a fire alarm? Would you? So it's okay. And in this case, participant hear a fire alarm. And first decision were between exit or wait for results. And decisions had to be made within a time limit of 10 seconds. Then, in the explosion trial, the open area changed, and here confederates decided to stay. In fire alarm, participant is alone. And here decisions were within exit or help injured, people injured. And finally, shootings trials. Here again, the open area changed and confederates decided to leave. Okay, again, here decisions were within exit or hide. And what about the participants who conducted the experiment? Well, we reached the sample of 1,807 individuals, with at least 300 in each experiment. The gender proportion were 51% of females and 49% of males, and their age ranged between 18 and 76 years. Regarding their education, participants had a medium high level of education. Well, then we reached the results section. We used sample statistical analysis, where the main dependent variables were the decisions taken and the decision time. And the external factors, the threat, physical and social, and internal factors, the sociodemographic characteristics, were the independent variables. Related to threat, we found a significant association with a higher proportion of participants decided to stay in all conditions. This external factor also impacts on decision times with higher values in fire trials. The analysis of physical factor compares the decision according the environment, open area and enclosure. We found differences in one condition in fire alarm and no impact for explosions. For this reason, the slide only shows the results for shootings trials. In this case, in shootings trials, there is association between the physical context and the decisions in all cases, and results indicate that participants were more likely to stay when they were in an enclosure environment and to leave when they were in open area. And interestingly, there were also differences in the decisions times for firearm conditions, with higher times in enclosure than in open area. And finally, for social factor, we compared the decisions made during the individual situation as the base with the group go and the group stay cases independently to analyze the social influence. Again, I only show the shootings trials results as they are the ones with the strongest evidence of impact. But we also found association in some alarm or explosion combinations. As you can see, the association in shootings trials indicated that participants increased their decision to leave despite the Confederate actions. And related to the decision time, participants took less time to decide in open area when they were with Confederates. And finally, this table shows the internal factors who had impact on decision or decision time. This analysis was conducted only for threat factor. The green check indicates that the internal factor has impact on the 3 threats. The orange circle indicates a partial impact, and this means that the factor only has impact in some threat. And red cross indicates that there is no impact. As highlights, gender had impact in fire alarm and explosion, but not in shootings, and females were more likely to leave than males. The age of individuals had a correlation with the decision of staying and with the decision time in all threats. For education level, we observed that in fire alarm and shootings, participants with lower education tended to stay. And finally, the participation in a drill before reducing the mean values to decide. So in conclusion, let me sum up the main points. And first of all is the question, should I stay or should I go? And it depends, there is no right answer for us. This experiment was conducted to know how individuals act in a threatening situation to improve our understanding on this field. This study is more comparative than predictive, but results indicate that external and internal factors influence participants' self-protective decisions. Then online experiments are a good format to collect data from evacuation studies and human behavior. And from our sample, only 47% of participants had participated in a drill before, and 68% hadn't received safety training. So this would be a great way, the online experiment, to improve this percentage and the confidence of people. And finally, our understanding of self-protective actions is improving, but we need to continue with that. Analyzing the impact of other variables, ranking the impact level of each factor analyzed in this study, and developing a model which predicts the survival probability. And that brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention, and here is the QR code of the experiment in case you want to participate in it, and I will leave some copies of the QR at the back of the room. Thank you.
So we have a question online first. It says, very interesting results. Can we know the uncertainty between survey results and real-life scenarios?
The answer, there is uncertainty, always.
And do you have any sense of quantification or an estimate?
No, because we can conduct this experiment in real. So at the moment, we only have online results.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you for that talk. It's really interesting. It's exciting to see some experimental work in this. You mentioned that you had survey measures as well as the behavioural measures to complement each other to give that kind of deeper understanding about why behaviour is happening. I was just thinking about research from crowd psychology, and I'm putting that hat on. We often find that we're more influenced by people we feel part of a group with, but also that when we have higher perception of threat, if we think we're all facing it, it can bring people together as a group. And I was just thinking about your manipulations, different experimental conditions there. I wondered, the way they're set out, in your survey measures, did you have questions about how much they felt as part of a group with others, or what their kind of perceived threat was? Because you've got the kind of fire alarm, shooting, etc., and there might be different perceptions of perceived threat. That made sense in my head, not when it came out of my mouth. Different levels of perceived threat. I just wondered if you'd looked into anything like that, or if you had plans to look into it, because it's really interesting work.
Could you repeat?
I guess, basically, in the survey, did you have questions about, related to social influence, how influenced they felt by others, or how much they felt they were facing a threat?
Social influence is only analyzed with or asking participants with the decisions. The survey or the post-questionnaire, they hadn't questions about social influence.
In perceived threat, I guess you get it from the behavioural data anyway.
Sorry?
All good. I'd love to chat to you after. It's great research. Thank you.
Anyone else? Oh, Steve.
You mentioned that you conducted the 3 different situations in the same order throughout. Why did you choose to do that?
We thought this conducted fire alarm, explosion, and shooting to the high threat.
I guess the only issue, the one thing that jumped to my mind is just that if it's in the same order all the time, there may be a learning impact or a priming impact.
Yes, but no. We try to avoid this learning behavior because one participant only conducts or performs 1 fire alarm, 1 shooting, and 1 explosion.
Oh, so that one person did each of them, so they didn't do all of them. Is that right? Did each person do all 3, or did each?
The 3, but in different physical and social conditions.
Oh, okay. So you varied other aspects of the. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's it for questions. Thank you very much.